Hey, I'm Okrushko, Principal Software Engineer, core team member of Nginx team, and a Google Developer Expert in Angular. I created this course for Angular engineers who want to dive deep in this new Angular signal-based world. In this course, we're going to learn modern Angular signal-based component model, how to do data fetching and mutations. We're going to understand the advanced routing and guards, and we're going to look into the signal-based form APIs. Go build signal-based Angular apps with confidence. So we have a like button here, right? Which again, right now it doesn't work, but we want to make it work. It's kind of local state to the component, but also we can pass the like state from the parent saying, hey, somebody liked it before, maybe you saved in local storage, maybe some other way. So let's have a linked signal for this. So now we have here, I'll call it initial like, because that's what the parent will kind of pass to me. And let's just say input false, right? So I'm providing the default value. I don't need to specify the type actually anymore. So you can infer the type from the value that I passed as well. So my initial like. Now I will have the function, the linked signal. I'll have my signal that's called is favorite. And this favorite is linked signal. And we'll read if the parent is pushing the value, we'll take it. If not, then we can do things on our own. So I'm reading the initial like here. So I'm linking my signal to the initial like. That's why it's linked. And then what I'm going to do here further is I'll have my function to toggle the favorite. By the way, this is a Canadian way of spelling, I think, right? You guys, no, it's actually US. Okay. Anyhow, so this is where I'm going to use the update function for method on the signal. So is my favorite, if I toggle it, every time I click it, I want to inverse the value. So is favorite, I'll do update, and I'll read my value, and I'll have my opposite value, for example. All right, so I'm inversing the local signal state. All right, so that should work now. We now need to add this functionality to the template itself. So we'll have here we'll read that value of is favorite. And again, we can use the ternary operator here, no problem. I can say, hey, if it's favorite, then we'll have the full heart. We can do this heart. Alternatively, we'll just use this value. This is also a string. So one thing that we also want to do is to add the functionality to this button. So we have this button, and we'll bind it to the click event. When the click is happening, then we'll call this toggle favorite method, right? And by one more thing we'll do, we can, again, optionally add classes to the components. This is nothing new. This has been around since very early versions of Angular. But this is, again, a very powerful thing that you can do. So we're going to say that we'll add this class of text red if it is favorite, right? So this is a conditional logic to add this class. All right. So again, Angular does hot module reloading by default. So it rebuilds, and it should work now. And as you can see, I click it, it works. That's awesome. So I'm going to export this guard. And the way I'll do it is I'm going to give this, even though this is a function, I'm not writing it as a function. I'm writing it as a const because I want to provide a specific type for it. So I'm making sure that this is the right type for it. So I can say that, hey, this is the can activate function, right? So this is a function. Again, typically we'll have function as functions. In different frameworks, it's very loose. A lot of consts are basically callback functions. Typically, I prefer functions to have like the function name. But again, this is one of those examples where we do want to provide specific type for the function. So that's why we write it as a const. And then what it will take is it will take our route, and it can also take the router, see router state snapshot, state, and then we'll do certain things with this. So beauty of functional approach, we can now inject the router directly here. Inject router. All right, we'll inject the router, and we'll do a few checks here. So I'm going to do a little cheating here. I'm going to be looking at the local storage to set the flag if I'm admin or not, right? But in reality, this is where you'll have your asynchronous or synchronous permission checking, most likely asynchronous, which probably already cached on your app anyway. So we'll just check if it's admin. Is admin. Admin. And we'll read the local storage. We'll just get the item for is it admin or not. And if it's equal to true, then it's admin. Notice again, I'm not comparing to Boolean value. I'm comparing to a string because anything was stored in local storage is basically a string on an object, right? So it's not really Booleans. Admin is misspelled. Here we go. Okay, so now if it's admin, if it's is admin, then we'll just return true, and we're done. So guard, we need to return either Boolean, true or false, or we need to return a new URL tree, which is basically where to redirect. So which we need to create. All right, so I don't really need the else case because I'm basically returning out of the function already. You can have an else case. But we can do just some alerting. This is just the built-in DOM stuff. You can say, hey, whatever, no access here, something like that. And then we'll return. That's why we were injecting router. We need to return a new URL tree. And router create URL tree helps us create one. And in this case, we just say, hey, it's just a home page, so go there. But if you wanted to have some logging page or something like that, this is what you'll create this. If you are, for example, protecting the authentication and not authenticated users. All right, so now we have this guard. Let's use it. So in the routes config, this create will also be protected by this guard. And for activation, meaning getting there, you can have can activate, and we can have this auth guard. Notice it's an array. It's an array because you can have multiple guards depending on different things. One is just pure authentication. The other one is like the specific permission for this authenticated user. So you can provide them all, and they'll basically pass each other and check if you can get there or not. All right, can activate. Perfect. So let's make sure that I don't have it because I probably do. Yes, I have my admin. Let me just set this to false. False. Right. So now in my app, if I'm here and I'm trying to get to admin, no access here, right? So it basically, the guard kicked in and it stops me from getting here. Now let's make sure that we can get there. If I change it to true, right, I'm through. So what did we add here? What we added here is this button to add the speaker. Add the speaker button. And what it does, it just creates the new empty slot for the speaker. And then we have, this is the beauty of this dynamic arrays, we're iterating over the speakers in the event data. And we tracking index. So index, you can always use index. It's automatically assigned within the for loop for every element starting from 0. It's 0-based index. If we don't have anything to track by ID or whatever else, right, that's one of the ways to track it by specific index. And then for each input, we'll field bind this form speakers at specific index, right? So basically in the loop dynamic array, we bind for each form speaker to the field. Really cool stuff. And then also we'll have, we'll add the button like add X, which is remove the speaker, and we'll pass the same index here. Right, so that's the index that we have here. I know it's interesting. I hope you see how we work with this, right? So we're iterating over our source, which is our signal, over all of those speakers. And we are tracking the index. And then, because that's the source, this is the source of truth for the form data. And then for each one, we'll bind the form speaker at that specific index. Form speakers knows that this is an array. And now it knows how to track each field individually. So when we type in, it will update that specific speaker. All right. Let's just see it in action. So for example, description right now, see disabled. Why is it disabled? Because title is required, and we disable if it's not there. Okay, so let's have some title like Angular Nginx Workshop. Ooh. Description. So again, look at this nicely. So if I enter this and I tell it that, hey, this has to be at least 10 characters. And you see there's a debounce. So once I over, there's a 1 second debounce. See, it's like, so there's a little debounce here as well. So amazing, of course. So some date. So see, boom. It took a little second to remove the error because it debounces that. Location, we'll have online, right? We can set the date. And again, I'm not even using the Angular components. This is just default browser one. Cool. And then we'll add the speaker. You can add multiple, and whatever we say, Alex, we'll have some Marco, Rainer, for example.